The Invisible Basilica of Basilides. List of Gnostic saints. Saints 43 through 49, including Valentinus, Basilides, Pythagoras, Manus, Simon Magus, Apollonius Tyanus, Swinburne. Gnostic Saint Valentinus, circa 105 to circa 165 era Vulgaris, by Tau Aperion. Alexandrian founder, probably of Carthaginian birth, of the Valentinian sect of Gnostics during the reign of Roman Emperor Antonius Pius. Valentinus may have studied with Basilides in Alexandria. He also claimed additional secret teachings from someone named Theodas, who was allegedly a disciple of Paul. In 136, he moved to Rome and was nearly elected Bishop of Rome. He was later excommunicated from the Roman Church. Valentinus was the most prominent and influential of the historical Christian Gnostics. The Valentinian system refined and elaborated on the Basilidian and Simonian systems, developing a highly complex model of the universe in each of 15 successive levels of emanation, aeons, occurs as a syzygy, a male-female pair. The supreme divinity, the monad, the father, is called bythos, depth or profundity, who is encompassed by sige or enoia, silence of idea. Through sige, the first syzygy, syzygy of aeons, nos, aletheia, emanated from bythos. Through sige, the first syzygy of aeons, nos, aletheia, emanated from bythos. These gave birth to the second syzygy, logos, zoe, which brought forth anthropos, ecclesia. These first 8 aeons were termed ogdoad. Logos, zoe, then brought forth another 10 aeons, termed decad, while anthropos, ecclesia, brought forth another 12 aeons, termed duodecad. Their entire scheme of aeons is shown below. The ogdoad, bythos, death or profundity, Mary, sige or enoia, silence of ideas. They produce nous, mind, aletheia, truth, who marry each other and produce logos, word, and zoe, life, who are coupled and produce anthropos, man, and ecclesia, church. And then on into further complication. The totality of all 30 aeons was termed the pleroma, fullness, and was considered to be in perfect balance. Of all the aeons, only Nos was capable of comprehending bythos, the Father, but was restrained by sige from revealing this mystery to other aeons. Sophia, the final aeon, especially longed to comprehend the first cause of her being, and conceived a plan, entheunesis, to do so, but was restrained by the boundary, horos, between Bythos and Sige. She aborted her plan, and fell into a torment of confusion. From her torment and confused passions arose the Demiurge, the god of Abraham and Moses. The later Gnostics named the Demiurge Soklos, fool, or Eodiboth, probably from the Hebrew El-Dibahoth, or El-Dibahoth, god of slanders, who existed outside the Pleroma. From her tormented and confused passions arose the Demiurge, the god of Abraham and Moses, who existed outside the Pleroma. From her aborted plan arose Ahamuth, wisdom, from the Hebrew Chokmah. Ahamuth typifies the lower wisdom, in contrast to Sophia's higher wisdom. The existence of Ahamuth threatened to upset the balance of the Pleroma. To prevent this, Bythos exiled her into the world of the Demiurge and set up a power called Staurus, cross, to act as the boundary of the Pleroma, to protect it from Ahamuth. To establish harmony within the Pleroma, Nous and Bythos brought forth Christos, Christ, and Dunoma, Hagion, the Holy Spirit, to reveal the mysteries of the Father and to teach the aeons their true nature. This being done, all the aeons, as an act of gratitude, brought forth a new aeon, Iosus Soter, Jesus the Savior, along with a number of attendant angels. Having been excluded from the Pleroma and thrust into the darkness without benefit of form or intelligence, Ahamuth became violently agitated. Christos projected himself through Staurus and provided her with form, but she was still without intelligence. Christos immediately withdrew back into the Pleroma, and Ahamuth attempted to follow him. She pressured herself against Staurus, which restrained her. In her agony, she uttered the mystic name Iau, and her passions produced the material world, Hail. From her grief sprang air, from her fear came water, from her confusion came earth, and from all three together arose fire. She then overcame her wild passions and turned again to the Pleroma. From her desire to return to the Father arose the soul, psyche of all, including that of the Demiurge. To aid her, Christos sent Iosus Soter and his angels through Staurus into the world. Saturn sent Jupiter, his son, into the world. He provided her with intelligence and separated her from her passions. Her ecstasy in clearly beholding Iosus and the angels produced the sparks of spirit, pneuma, which would infuse the spiritual race. Ahamuth sought to give form to the matter that she had produced, and through the instrumentality of the Demiurge, she created the seven heavens, the Hebdomad, and mankind. Through the Demiurge, though the Demiurge ignorantly believed that he himself created these things, through the unknowing Demiurge, Ahamuth infused the spiritual sparks into the pneumatic, or spiritual race. According to Valentinus, the human race is divided into three races, corresponding to the three sons of Adam, the hylic corresponding to Cain, the psychic corresponding to Abel, and the pneumatic corresponding to Seth. The idea of these three races is closely paralleled in other systems, notably in the yogic conception of the gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattva, the tantric conception of the three types of aspirants, Pashubhava, Virabhava, and Divyabhava. In the Manchurian concept of the profane, matter, body, the hearer's soul, and the elect, light, spirit, and the three men who quested after the Holy Grail, Bors, Percival, and Galahad. In Bulwer Lytton's characters, Glendon, Zanuni, and Mejnour. And in the thelemic conception of the man of earth, the lover, and the hermit. The pneumatic individual possesses the sperma pneumaticum, the seed of spirit, and the knowledge of the pleroma. The pneumatic is destined to salvation. The pneumatic is destined for salvation from the final destruction of the manifested universe, regardless of his or her behavior. The hylic dwells in the utter darkness of materialistic ignorance and is destined for destruction. The hylic is entirely composed of illusory, transitory matter, and will vanish along with all other illusions at the restoration of the pleroma. The psychic is situated halfway between the pneumatic and the hylic, and possesses free will. Salvation for the psychic is a matter of choice, of right aspiration, and of faith. Iusus Soter manifested on earth by uniting at birth with the Messiah promised by the Demiurge. His task on earth was to utter the word of truth, to impart the gnosis to the psychic race, that they may turn themselves toward the pleroma, the world beyond space and time, and away from the illusory and transitory world. In the end, when the task of Iusus Soter has been accomplished, Ahamuth will ascend to the bridal chamber and be wedded to Iusus. They will then both ascend into the pleroma, taking with them the pneumatic race, who will take their places among the angels of Iusus. The demiurge will rise to the middle space, formerly occupied by Ahamuth, and will take with him those of the psychic race who have been saved. Alam al-Khayal. The manifested universe, along with the hylic race, will then be engulfed by its own internal fire, and all matter will be utterly destroyed. Then the pleroma will be restored to its original perfection of peace, and all duality will be resolved. Valentinus had a number of prominent and influential successors who made further developments to the Valentinian system. These were Ptolemaeus, Heracleon, Theodotus, Marcus, Axionicus of Antioch, and Candidus of Athens. One of the characteristics of Gnosticism was the freedom of the Gnostic teacher to build upon, expand, and modify the doctrines of his predecessors. And the students of Valentinus developed the Valentinian system in a number of different directions. Some were philosophical, some were ritualistic, and many of their doctrines and ceremonies were borrowed by more orthodox religious teachers. Some modern scholars believe that the sacramental and liturgical system of the Roman Catholic Church was originally based in a large part on the Valentinian ritual systems developed by Marcus and Theodotus. Valentinian churches were active until the late 4th century. Several documents from the later Valentinian system have survived and are included in the Nag Hammadi Library. These are the Gospel of Truth, the Tripartite Tractate, the Gospel of Philip, and a Valentinian exposition. References: Blount, John Henry, editor, Dictionary of Sects, Heresies, Ecclesiastical Parties, and Schools of Religious Thought. Rivington's, London, 1874. Gale Research, Detroit, 1974. Bull Neuti, Ernesto, Symbols and Rites in the Religious Life of Certain Monastic Orders, 1934 to 1935. In the Mystic Vision, papers from the Eranos yearbooks, Bollingen series XXX.6 or 30.6, edited by Joseph Campbell, Princeton, Bollingen, Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. Fiedler, David R., The Passion of Sophia, an early Gnostic creation myth in Gnosis, number 1, The Lumen Foundation, Fall Winter 1985. Heller, Stephen A., Valentinus, A Gnostic for All Seasons, in Gnosis, number 1, The Lumen Foundation, Fall Winter 1985. Jackson, Samuel Macaulay, Editor-in-Chief, The New Schaff-Herzog Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge, SCHAFF-HERZOG, Baker Bookhouse, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 1953. Leitsche, Lefferts A., Editor-in-Chief, The 20th Century Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge and Extension of the New Schaff-Herzog Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge, Baker Bookhouse, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 1955. Mallory, Sir Thomas, Le Mort de Author. Edited by Janet Cowan, Penguin Books, London, 1969 to 1986. Mead, G.R.S., Fragments of a Faith Forgotten, 1900. University Books, New York. Robinson, James M., editor, The Nag Hammadi Library, Harper and Row, San Francisco, 1978. Rudolf Kurt, Gnosis, Harper and Row, San Francisco, 1977. Original publication date 5/9/95. Originally published in Red Flame No. 2. Mystery of Mystery, a primer of Thelemic ecclesiastical Gnosticism by Tao Apirion and Helena, Berkeley, California, 1995. Evie. Next is Basilides, circa 100 to circa 139, by Tao Apirion, Syrian or Egyptian founder of the Basilidian sect of Christian Gnostics by in Alexandria during the reigns of the Roman emperors Hadrian and Antonius Pius. What we know of Basilides and of his system we know by virtue of the reports of his enemies, primarily Irenaeus of Lyon, circa 100 to 203, and Hippolytus. Only a few fragments of his writings remain. These are primarily preserved in the Elencos of Hippolytus. Basilides was probably the first major Gnostic who viewed himself as a Christian theologian, but unlike his predecessor, Simon Magus, he rejected the Old Testament. His system was probably an attempt to reconcile the Pauline Christianity, Egyptian Gnosticism, and popular Alexandrian Platonist philosophy of his day with its own mystical experiences. He claimed, by some accounts, to have been vested with secret revelations from Paul through his interpreter named Glaucius, by others from the disciple Matthew, by others from the now unknown and possibly fictitious prophets Barkov and Barkabas. He wrote 24 commentaries called Exegetica on the Gospels, only fragments of which now remain. He also wrote hymns and odes for his congregation, none of which have been discovered to date. According to preserved fragments of his writings, the doctrines of Basilides apparently included those of reincarnation and of karma, but there is no convincing evidence that he was directly influenced by Eastern systems. Like most other Gnostics, Basilides believed that matter and spirit were of opposing natures, but were mixed together in the sensible world. To Basilides, the passions were unnatural accretions which encrusted the spiritual essence due to its entanglement in matter. Sin consisted of preoccupation with materiality, of which everyone is by nature guilty. Salvation involved the disentanglement of spirit from matter and was to be accomplished through asceticism and faith. Suffering was not considered as something to be escaped, but was considered instead as a blessing, the purpose of which was to turn the spiritual essence away from its entanglement in matter. Faith was an assent of the soul to a proposition that is not evident to the senses. It cannot, therefore, be achieved by instruction, conviction, or judgment. It must be inborn. Basilides, therefore, shared with Calvin the idea of predestined salvation. To Basilides, there were those who had the capacity for faith, the elect, who were characterized by a sense that they are somehow aliens in this world, and by a sort of nostalgia and longing for the transcendent. There are also those who are incapable of faith, who feel perfectly at home in the world and are indeed entirely a part of it. These Basilides labels pigs and dogs. Basilides also rejected the Orthodox Christian idea of the resurrection of the flesh. Basilides taught that only souls are saved, bodies are worth nothing. This last doctrine may be the source of Irenaeus' accusation that Basilidians were characterized by libertinism, even though Basilides himself taught asceticism. Some of the later Basilidians may have developed a libertine morality based on the idea that the sins of the flesh are irrelevant and may be viewed with indifference. There are two distinct accounts of the cosmological system of Basilides, that presented by Irenaeus and that presented by Hippolytus. Irenaeus presents a dualistic system stressing emanation, whereas Hippolytus presents a monistic system stressing evolution. According to Irenaeus, Basilides taught that the universe began when 5 aeons, or ions, literally eternities, emanated in succession from the unbegotten Father. These were mind, nous, or Christ, word, logos, intelligence or prudence, phoronesis, wisdom, Sophia, and strength or power, dynamis. If the Matrix movies are to be believed as part of the Gnostic tradition, the last was the Matrix, a matrices. These 5 or 6, the oracle says, this is the 6th time we've destroyed it, and we are becoming exceedingly efficient at it. The architect is the demiurge mentioned before. So, nous, logos, phoronesis, Sophia, dynamis, matrices. These 5 aeons constitute the pleroma, fullness. These 6 aeons constitute the pleroma, fullness. Or, we would say, these 6 aeons constitute the tesseract of togetherness. From the last 2 aeons, Sophia and Dynamis issued 365 spirit realms, or heavens, in an unbroken descending sequence, each with its own set of angelic rulers. Hours, minutes, seconds. These 365 heavens, or aethers, are constituted under the name Abrasax. By Greek gematria, Abraxas equals 365. The god of the Hebrews, Aberu, who created this illusory world and is its ruler, Archon, was not the supreme deity, but merely the leader of the angels ruling the lowest heaven. Ignorant, so this would be Kether. Ignorant of the existence of the supreme deity, Ein, Or, ignorant of the existence of the supreme deity, this demiurgus or demiurge, people worker, accomplished his pseudo-creation through the activities of his 6 sons, the planetary genii, and demanded the worship of those he had created, or the lauding of his creation. To worship means to laud and recommend the thing that is worshipped. But since the demiurge is not capable of true creation, he could not have created humanity from nothing. Humanity is actually of the essence of the supreme deity, but clothed about with the illusion of the demiurge. This is a legal argument allowing those beneath the demiurge to pursue justice beyond him. When the supreme deity perceived the corruption of the world, of illusion, and the suffering of humanity, he sent his firstborn, Nous, or Christ, into the world to bring them to salvation from illusion through the transcendent knowledge, gnosis, of their divine nature. Nous incarnated as Jesus, Jah-Zeus. Nous incarnated as Jah-Zeus, but was supposedly known to the Basilidians by a secret name, Gavlikov. Since Nous was a divine power and not corporal, he could not die. Jesus, therefore, did not die on the cross, as assumed by those in the bonds of illusion. He was instead replaced thereon by a substitute, Simon of Cyrene, and ascended again to the Father. In the system of Basilides, as presented by Hippolytus, the supreme and ineffable God consists of absolute, transcendent nothingness, utterly beyond all human conception. As an act of pure will, this transcendent God generated the panspermia, or cosmic seed. The cosmic seed was chaotic, confused and disorderly in nature, but contained within itself the complete and perfect plan of the Supreme God. Everything in the universe manifested as part of a predetermined process of evolution from this cosmic seed, according to an ordered sequence which proceeded upward toward God. This evolution included that of three sonships, or filialities, which were of the same transcendent nature as the Supreme God. The first sonship was utterly pure and ascended directly from the cosmic seed up to God. I am picturing now the Windows logo. The second sonship, or world spirit, being coarser, escaped the cosmic seed only with difficulty and by the aid of the intermediate spirit, which Basilides identified with the Christian Holy Spirit, which emerged from the cosmic seed with the second sonship. The second sonship, sonship, ascended to a position immediately below the first sonship, but the intermediate spirit, being a non-transcendent nature, remained behind and became established as the firmament, stereoma, which divides the transcendent realm from the sensible realm. The third sonship was immersed in the entanglement and confusion of gross matter. The third sonship was immersed in the entanglement and confusion of gross matter, and did not escape the cosmic seed, but remained as the highest of beings below the firmament, yearning for liberation and transcendence. The third sonship represents the chosen people, the elect, those who were worthy of salvation. Next in rank to the third sonship was the great Archon, ruler, who ascended from the cosmic seed to the firmament, establishing himself in the region of the fixed stars, the planets. Thinking himself to be the highest God, and therefore alone the great Archon, even the Sun, brought forth from the panspermia a son for himself, who was greater than himself, and the great Archon bade his son to sit at his right hand. At the Sun's suggestion, the great Archon created the sphere of the 7 planets. A second Archon then emerged from the cosmic seed, brought forth his own son, and created the sublunar world, the space between the moon and the earth, whereas the great Archon and his son constitute the Ogdoad, the Godhead that is never named. The second Archon and his son constitute the Hebdomad, the Godhead that is known to mankind by various names. The earth then emerged from the cosmic seed according to the original plan without a special archon or creator. The process of salvation began when the Gnosis, the gospel, descended like a beam of light, or a letter, or a bird, through the intermediate spheres and worlds, the first and second sonships, the great archon and his son of the Ogdoad, and the second archon and his son of the Hebdomad, informing and humbling them all with the transcendent truth, and ultimately illuminating the soul of the mortal man. Jesus at the very moment of his baptism, Jesus at the very moment of his baptism, by his Gnostic illumination, Jesus was made aware that his true will was to fulfill the process of salvation and the restoration of all things, apokatastasis, by separating out the spiritual essence of the third sonship from its entanglement in gross matter, and leading it back beyond the firmament. The system of Basilides also included a well-developed and quite unique eschatology. According to Basilides, via Hippolytus, once the process of the restoration of the spirit to its natural place beyond the firmament has been accomplished, the great primeval ignorance will spread all over creation. The knowledge of the transcendent realm will be withdrawn forever. All things below the firmament, including the Ogdoad and the Hebdomad, will be established in their proper place in the universe, and will continue to exist, but will act in perfect harmony, free from all desire for anything which is contrary to their natures. Despite his advocacy of asceticism, Basilides had at least one son, perhaps a spiritual son rather than a genetic son, named Isidorus, who succeeded him in his office as religious teacher. References: Jackson, Samuel McCullough, Editor-in-Chief, The New Shav Herzog Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge, Baker Book House, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 1953. Leitchid Lefferts, A., Editor-in-Chief, The 20th Century Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge, an extension of the New Shav Herzog Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge. Baker Book House, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 1955. Mead, G.R.S., Fragments of a Faith Forgotten, 1900, University Books, New York. Gispel, Gilles, Gnostic Man, The Doctrine of Basilides, 1948, in the Mystic Vision, Papers from the Iranus Yearbooks, Bollingen Series, 30.6, edited by Joseph Campbell, Princeton, Bollingen, Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. Rudolph, Kurt, Gnosis, Harper and Row, San Francisco, 1977. Yamauchi, Edwin, Pre-Christian Gnosticism, Tyndale Press, London, 1973. Original publication date of this article, 5/9/95. Originally published in Red Flame No. 2, Mystery of Mystery, a primer of Thelemic ecclesiastical Gnosticism by Tau Apirion and Helena, Berkeley, California, 1995. The next Gnostic saint is he who shall not be named. Pythagoras, circa 582 to 507 before the Common Era, by Tau Apirion. Added to the list of saints in 1929 to 30, Greek philosopher, mathematician, astronomer, music theorist, initiate of the Orphic Mysteries, and religious cult leader. See Part 3 of The Heart of the Master. The Pytho of the Agora was born at Samos, the great-grandson of the philosopher Hippasos. In his studies, he traveled to Egypt, Phoenicia, Arabia, and Babylonia. Some later writers state that he also traveled to India and Persia. In 530 BCE, he established a community of mystics at Crotona in southern Italy, which flourished until the end of the 4th century before the Common Era. Like most great teachers of antiquity, as well as many modern ones, his real history is clouded by fantastic legends. The Pytho of the Agoras is well known for his discovery of the geometric theorem which bears his name, and which states that the square of the hypotenuse of any right triangle is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides. The Pytho of the Agoras may have learned this theorem in Babylonia. A theorem is different from the utilization of the theorem, which may or may not have been known explicitly in this way. So it is possible that the Egyptians completely understood this concept but had not stated this theorem, which is almost like naming it. The Pythagoreans are also credited with the discovery of irrational numbers. The teachings of the Pythos of the Agoras were influential on both Gnostic and Neoplatonic movements. The Pythagorean doctrine sharply distinguishes between thought and sense, soul and body, the mathematical form of things and their physical appearances. For the Pythagoreans, the universe was mathematical harmony, and all phenomena were sensuous expressions of mathematical ratios. Their conception of God was as a supreme, intelligent, and imperceptible spirit, pervading all nature and imbuing it with life. They believed in reincarnation of an immortal soul, and their system of ethics was based on the restoration of harmony out of the confusion of the senses. They recommended ascetic practices to engender the serenity and tranquility necessary to achieve perfect harmony. Pythagoreans' teachings incorporated a complex symbolism based on numerical correspondences. The Pythagoreans spoke of the universe as being composed of 10 concentric circles, or I should say, being composed of 10 concentric spheres. The outermost was the sphere of the sun, then moving inward, one sphere for each of the 7 planets, then one sphere for the earth, and the innermost sphere was of the anti-earth, the anti-chthon, composed of fire. Some would say the inner earth. Each sphere was thought to have its own particular vibration, frequency. The harmony of these vibrations was termed the music of the spheres, and the harmony of these vibrations was termed the music of the spheres. And music theory was thus an important element of the Pythagorean teachings. The badge of the Pythagoreans is said to have been the pentagram. No writings of the Pythos of the Agoras survive. However, a collection of aphorisms of his followers is preserved in the golden verse of Pythagoras. Fabre de Olivet's translation of the Golden Verses is included in Section 1 of the AA reading list, and if you have access to the Roman archives, up until about the year 300, there were all of the sayings of the Pythia, who is the oracle of Apollo. The Pythos of the Agoras is considered the avatar of Apollo, and the one spoken of considered himself to be that avatar. So he was as if he were Apollo. References: Bullfinch, Thomas, or at least that's what he told the people in the cult. Bullfinch, Thomas, The Age of Fable, 1855, republished by Mentor, New York, 1962. Crowley, Alistair, The Heart of the Master, Ordo Templi Orientis, 1938. New Falcon Publications, Scottsdale, Arizona, 1992. De Olivet, Fabre, Golden Verses of Pythagoras, translated by Nayan Louis Redfield, 1813. Samuel Weiser, New York, 1975. Forlong, J.G.R., Faiths of Man, A Cyclopedia of Religions, Bernard Quaritch, 1906, University Books, New York, 1964, Runes, Dagobert, The Dictionary of Philosophy, Philosophical Library, New York. Original publication date 5/9/95. Originally published in Red Flame No. 2, Mystery of Mystery, a primer of Thelemic Ecclesiastical Gnosticism by Tao Apirion and Helena, Berkeley, California, 1995. Another potential translation of Pythagoras is, again, the Pythos of Horus, or the Pharaoh of Egypt. Gnostic Saint Manus, circa 216 to 275, by Tao Apirion, also known as Mani or Manichaeus, Persian philosopher and religious teacher, founder of the Gnostic religion of Manichaeism. See Chapter 201 of Liber Aleph. Crowley's placement of Mani in this position is curious. Mani was a later teacher than Basilides, Valentinus, and Bardesanes. Also, whereas these teachers considered themselves Christians, Mani was the founder of an entirely new religion, which claimed to be the culmination of Zoroastrianism, Christianity, and Buddhism. The reader who is unfamiliar with Gnosticism may benefit by reading the section on Basilides, Valentinus, and Bardesanes before proceeding with Mani. Mani's Persian name was Shuryak, or Cubricus in Latin. He was born in southern Babylonia of noble Persian stock. His father, Ptah, was from Ecbatana and was a religious leader of a Jewish Christian baptizing sect called the Mu'tazila, founded by a prophet known as El-Jasai, and it was within the religious framework of this sect and under the careful tutelage of his father that Mani was raised. When he was 12 years old, he experienced a vision in which an angel named At-Ta'um, the twin, instructed him to withdraw from the Mu'tazila and begin to purify himself with ascetic practices. The angel returned to Shurya, the young man, and This second time called upon him to preach a new religion. In 242, era Vulgaris, he proclaimed a new universal religion at the Persian court of Shapur I, proclaiming himself to be Mani, the vessel. The prophesied Paraclete, the divine helper of mankind. And the last of the great prophets, in his new religion, he consciously sought to reconcile the great religions of redemption, Christianity, Gnostic, Zoroastrianism, Zurvanite, and Buddhism, Mahayana, in a new syncretism which also incorporated elements of Greek philosophy and Indian Jainism, while refuting patriarchal Judaism. He was not at first well received and was forced to flee the country. He traveled to Transoxania, modern Uzbekistan, India, and Western China, making converts wherever he went. He intended that his religion be a world religion, in fact, the first world religion, and he consciously adapted his teaching to accommodate local beliefs and customs, very much like the Jesuits do. He was regarded by his Christian adherents as the Paraclete, by his Persian followers as the Zoroastrian Redeemer, Seo Sheont, and by his Buddhist disciples as the Avatar Mochya, Maitreya. Three rivers, or three waters. In addition to an extensive body of anti-Manichaean literature in many languages, Mani and Manichaeism have themselves left us numerous texts in Latin, Greek, Coptic, Middle Iranian, the language of the Wei Gar, and Chinese. Manichaeism is, therefore, relatively well understood today. Among the extant Manichaean sacred texts are the Living Gospel, the Treasure of Life, the Pragmateia, the Book of Mysteries, the Epistles, the Book of Giants, and Psalms and Prayers. These books were, at least in part, considered to have been inspired by Mani's angel, At Ta'um. Or Malakatos. There is also Shah Buragan, a summary of the Manichaean teachings prepared for Shapur I, Ardahang, a picture book illustrating Mani's view of the world, and Kephaleia, Kephalaia, a collection of the sayings of Mani. Cephaleia, thoughts from my mind, or thoughts from my head. Mani eventually returned to Persia, where his following had greatly increased. This time he was favorably received by Shapur and by his successor, Hormisdas I. He was allowed to preach freely and was even given a city in Khuzestan for his residence. He finally fell victim to the established Zoroastrian priesthood during the reign of Bahram I, the successor of Hormisdas. He was arrested at Gundev Shapur in 276, era Vulgaris, and thrown into prison in chains, where he died after 26 days. His corpse was flayed, and his skin was stuffed with straw and nailed to the gate of the city. His Persian followers were then subjected to severe persecution, but Manichaeism outside Persia flourished. Records show the Manichaean religion to have spread to Iraq, Syria, Palestine, Egypt, North Africa, Asia Minor, Armenia, Dalmatia, Rome, Spain, southern Gaul, Transoxana, Turkestan, China, and even Tibet. In the doctrine of Manichaeism, the teaching of light, as it was called, the universe was originally divided between two eternal, uncreated, and utterly irreconcilable principles. The two seas which meet but do not mix, light and darkness. The realm of light was located in the north, tended upwards, and extended infinitely to the north, east, and west. It was ruled by the Father of Greatness, identified with Zorovan in Persia, and was manifested as 5 worlds: Nous, mind; Enoia, thought; Phronesis, prudence; Enthemesis, reflection; and Logismos, reason, which are surrounded by a great number of ions. 12 of these ions, the firstborn, surround the Father, 3 to each quarter of the heavens. The realm of darkness, Hayal, was located in the south, tended downwards, and extended infinitely only to the south. It was ruled by the Prince of Darkness, and was also manifested as 5 worlds: smoke, fire, storm, mud, and darkness. From each of these 5 worlds grew a tree, and from the 5 trees came the 5 species of demons. The demons were divided into 2 sexes, and their existence was characterized by constant warfare and procreation. Each world of darkness was ruled by an archon, a demon, a lion, an eagle, a fish, and a dragon. The Prince of Darkness combined within himself the attributes of all 5 archons. Due to its inherent restlessness, the realm of darkness was always approaching the borders of the realm of light and contending with its forces. Once, a chance shift in the battles within darkness elevated the Prince of Darkness to the highest point of his realm, where he beheld the light, and the magnificence of the realm of light bred in him the desire to possess it. He resolved to make war on the realm of light with his demons. The Father of Greatness saw that it was necessary to meet the challenge of the forces of darkness. But his aeons were meant for peace, and they could not be sent to do battle with the demons. So the Father resolved to go to battle himself. To do this, he called forth 3 evocations from himself. In the first evocation, the Father called forth the Great Spirit, or Wisdom, Sophia. The Great Spirit projected the Mother of the Living, and the Mother of the Living projected the first man, identified with Ur-Mazd in Persia. The first man with his 5 sons, fire, wind, water, light, and ether, who composed his soul, and were also the 5 garments of light, which made up his armor, descended into the realm of darkness to do battle with the invading demons. While battling the demons in the realm of darkness, the first man managed to sever the roots of the 5 trees of darkness, thus preventing the further growth of evil. However, the demons eventually overwhelmed him. He sacrificed his soul, composed of his 5 sons, who were his 5 garments, to the swarming demons. The demons devoured his sons, his soul, and left him lying unconscious on the battlefield. Light, the substance of the soul of the first man, was thus engulfed by the darkness of matter. Over time, this light was poisoned by matter and lost consciousness of its nature. But also matter was poisoned by the light and gradually became utterly dependent upon it for survival. Eventually recovering consciousness, the first man stirred himself on the battlefield and prayed 7 times for help to the Father of Greatness. The Father heard his prayer and responded by initiating the second evocation of himself. The Father heard his prayer and responded by initiating the second evocation of himself, in which he called forth the friends of the lights, Aleph, Lam, Mim, who called forth the great architect, who called forth the living spirit, identified with Mithra in Persia. The living spirit called forth 5 sons, bearer of brightness, king of honor, Adamus of light, king of glory, and the supporter, Atlas, who descended into darkness to find the first man. He appears as a giant eagle. The living spirit then sent out an awakening call to the first man below. The call, together with the first man's answer, arose from the depths into the realm of light. The living spirit accepted the call and donned it as a cloak, and the mother of the living accepted the answer and donned it as a cloak. The living spirit and the mother of the living then went down into the realm of darkness, where the first man and his sons were. Call and answer together became personified as a divinity named Reflection of Life, Ana Mirat al-Habibi, or the Great Idea. Encountering the first man, the living spirit stretched forth his right hand to him, lifted him up from the darkness and led him back to the light. But the soul of the first man, the particles of light from his 5 sons, remained behind, submerged in darkness, awaiting redemption. Reflection of life strengthened the desire of the last particles of light for their home in the north. The living spirit then returned to the realm of darkness and made war upon the demons. He created the world from their bodies and the light imprisoned therein. From their bodies he fashioned the 8 earths, from their skins the 10 heavens. He fastened the 5 archons living in the firmament. He divided the light which was within the realm of darkness into 3 parts, according to its degree of mixture with matter. From the remaining undefiled light he created the sun and moon. From the remaining light which had been slightly defiled, he created the stars. He created 3 great wheels for the redemption of that light, which was retained by matter: the wheel of fire, the wheel of water, and the wheel of wind, all under the control of the King of Glory, Subhanahu. Bearer of brightness was set to hold up the 10 heavens, and supporter was stationed to hold up the 3 upper earths. The living spirit had created the world as a vast mechanism for the redemption of the light. All that remained was the mechanism to be set in motion, a task to be accomplished by the 3rd evocation. At the entreaty of the mother of the living, the first man and the living spirit, the Father of greatness called forth the 3rd evocation. The principal figure of the 3rd evocation was the 3rd envoy, or the god of the realm of light, who dwelt within the sun. The 3rd envoy was of both male and female aspect, and engendered 12 daughters, the maidens of light, who represent the zodiac. Before the great universal machine could be set in motion, the 3rd envoy had to create a pathway to the realm of light. This he did in the form of the pillar of glory, or column of light, also called the perfect man, al-insan kamil. The pillar of glory can be seen in the night sky as the Milky Way. When the universal machine was set in motion, the purified particles of light would ascend via the pillar of glory to the moon during the first 15 days of each month. When the moon became full, it would empty its collected light into the sun during the final 15 days of each month, for energy is not destroyed, but dispersed. Whence the redeemed light would pass on to a place called the new Aeon, a place designed by the great architect and ruled by the first man. The new Aeon was consubstantial with the realm of light, but would remain apart from it until the last day. Upon completion of the pillar of glory, the 3rd envoy set the sun and moon and the 3 wheels of fire, water, and wind in motion. It was then necessary to deprive the archons, suspended in the sky by the living spirit, of the light they had consumed. To accomplish this task, the 3rd envoy revealed her male and female aspects naked to the archons. The male archons, beholding the nakedness of the female aspects of the 3rd envoy, the Virgin of Light, ejaculated. Their seed fell to the earth, and with it the light they had swallowed. A portion of their seed fell on the water, and became a huge sea monster, which Adamus of light attacked and defeated. The portion of the seed that fell on the land became the 5 types of vegetable life. The female archons, sickened by the turning of the wheel of the zodiac to which they were bound, aborted the embryos they carried as a result of their unions in darkness. This system of darkness was used by the Spartans to reproduce. The Spartans are the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. The abortions fell to earth and became demons, which began to devour the plants and procreate, thereby producing the 5 types of animal life. To abort an embryo, in this case, is to give birth. Through the changing of the seasons and the cycle of life, the process of the redemption of the light had been initiated. The Prince of Darkness beheld the beginning of the process of redemption and feared the final loss of the particles of light. In order to bind the particles of light to itself more closely, darkness conceived of an adverse creation. It conjured 2 demons, the male Asaklun or Saklas, and the female Nebruel or Namrael, to devour the offspring of the other abortions, absorbing and concentrating their light. They were then to unite and produce 2 children in the male-female image of the 3rd envoy. The light collected by the 2 demons by devouring the other demons was passed on to their children as the soul, and the 2 children were named Adam and Eve. Imprisoned along with the soul of light in the demon-born bodies of the first human pair is the dark spirit, Az, composed of lust and greed, who was placed there by darkness to ensure that the light would continue to remain imprisoned in matter. In a countermaneuver, the 3rd envoy called forth Yesu Ziva, Jesus the Radiant, or the Shining, to awaken Adam and enlighten him with respect to the divine origin of the soul and its imprisonment in the body. Jesus the Radiant took on material form. Isa al-Munir, took on material form, crucifying himself on the cross of matter to confront Adam. Enlightened, Adam resolved upon chastity, renouncing the prolongation of suffering which was procreation. Eve, however, was seduced by a demon and bore to the demon 2 children, Cain and Abel, Abel. The continued bondage of a portion of the light was thus assured, and its ultimate redemption was considered the responsibility of humankind, a Nes. To assist humankind in its work toward redemption, Jesus the Radiant, Isa al-Munir, called forth the mind of light, the Father of all apostles, the Holy Spirit, to send prophets who would bring the Gnosis to the people and show them the way to redemption. The mind of light caused Adam and Eve to unite one time to bring forth the first such prophet, whose name was Seth. Later prophets were Noah, Shem, Abraham, Enosh, Nicotheos, Enoch, Buddha, Orestes, Zoroaster, Jesus, whose crucifixion was the resolution of the earlier crucifixion of Isa al-Munir, Jesus the Radiant, on the cross of matter. Paul, and finally Mani, who was at 1 hour and 14 minutes and 21 seconds, Khatam al-Anbiya, the seal of the prophets. With the Gnosis comes the will to redemption, and the gnosis enables the soul to withstand evil by clothing it in the 5 virtues of love, faith or law, perfection, patience, and wisdom. Religion is the weapon of the gnosis in striving to keep the soul awake and resolute against the attacks of darkness, which cause forgetfulness. When the individual dies, the body descends to darkness. The soul, if awakened, ascends the column of light to the moon, thence to the sun, and thence to the new aeon. If asleep, the soul is reincarnated on earth. The last day, the end of the world, will occur when the deliverance of the light is nearly complete, and the world, being deprived of most of its light, is in a degenerate state of materialism. The last day will be signaled by a great war, followed by the second coming of Jesus. Jesus will separate the remaining awakened souls from those remaining asleep, then withdraw himself with the last awakened souls to the new aeon,